With the new rules that were put in place before the season, 2023 was going to be a big year for MLB no matter what happened on the field, and a lot of us have been waiting to see how this was all going to play out. MLB's Joint Competition Committee had voted in favor of 3 rule changes that were going to be put in place this season, with the hope that they would improve the pace of play, increase offense to create more action on the field, and help reduce injuries. So the first change was adding the pitch clock. 30 seconds in between batters, 15 seconds for the pitcher to start delivering the pitch with the bases empty, and 20 seconds with runners on base. If the batter's not alert and ready at 8 seconds, then it's an automatic strike. If the pitcher's late, then it's an automatic ball, and the pitcher can only disengage from the rubber twice per at-bat. The pitch clock was mainly meant to increase the pace of play, cutting down on time between pitches, which it did by about 26 minutes when it was tried out in the minors, but also giving pitchers less time to catch their breath and gather themselves between pitches was probably going to lead to more mistakes and help hitters out too, as well as limiting the amount of times that a pitcher could throw over was expected to lead to more stolen base attempts. The second rule was pretty much getting rid of defensive shifts. Basically now, infielders have to stay on the dirt and you can only have 2 infielders on each side of second base. Now this rule was to get more offense back on the field. Basically, with all the shifts over the last couple of years, we'd seen countless times where a line drive would get smoked over to the pull side, and if you'd watch baseball for a little bit, you'd see that and just go like, all right, there's a base hit, and then it just go right to like a second baseman who's standing out in shallow right. And the final change was making the bases a little bit bigger, going from 15-inch bases to 18. Not only giving players a little bit more room to try to avoid collisions or stepping on each other, stuff like that, but hopefully this was also going to get teams to try to steal a bit more often and get more going on the base paths, since the bases were going to be just that little bit closer to each other. Now, MLB had tested these rule changes in the minors, and they had their evidence that the rules were going to help the game in the way that they wanted it to, but we weren't going to know exactly how this was going to impact Major League Baseball until they were actually put in place. But now we've had half a season to see how Major League teams and players have reacted to these changes, and we know it's had a huge impact on the pace of play, but how has this actually impacted the game on the field? So let's take a look at both 2022 and 2023 up until the All-Star break and see what kind of a difference there's been so far. Well, just overall, with these new rules in place, offense has gone up across the board. There's been more runs getting scored, and the league batting average, on-base percentage, slugging percentage, and OPS have all gone up, with the league OPS going up 22 points from last year. We've already seen more hits so far this year in less plate appearances, and a higher percentage of these have been for extra bases. Mainly home runs, where last year 13.2% of hits were homers, and this year that's gone up to 13.8. And we've seen more offense, not just with the bat, but on the bases too, and by a lot. There's already been over 500 more stolen bases this year, and the success rate on stolen bases has gone up almost 4%, from 75.5% last year to 79.4%. Now, there has been a higher percentage of strikeouts this year, but the percentage of walks has also gone up, so this is probably just a little difference in the pitching across the league and not really much to do with the rule changes. Because overall, it's pretty clear and obvious here that the new rules have helped the hitters out a lot, but now I want to take a look at specifically what kind of a difference the shift rule and the pitch clock have made. And let's start with the more obvious one here, and that's going to be the shift rule. With how this rule was made, it wasn't going to change much on balls that were hit back up the middle, because you can still move your infielders around, you just can't put them in the outfield or on the other side of second. But you can still basically put one of your middle infielders like right behind the pitcher, where teams were putting them anyways in most of these shifts. See, the big change here was going to be with these hard hit grounders and line drives that were going to the pull side, because with one of your infielders basically out in the shallow outfield, those were the hits that were getting taken away, because those guys out there had more time to react and cover ground to get to those balls. And without that guy out there anymore, those hits are back. On these pull side grounders and line drives, the batting average this year has gone from 306 to 323, and the slugging percentage has also gone up from 404 to 428. So a pretty noticeable difference, and I mean, Teams were shifting that much for a reason. Now, a big reason for this increase, and especially with the slugging percentage here, is that we're seeing more doubles this year, since without basically another outfielder out there, there's more room for something to fall in, but there's also been more homers this year on some of these liners, which is gonna bump those numbers up. And yeah, it doesn't really matter whether you shift or not when a guy just hits an absolute piss missile over the fence. On top of this, there's been a drop in soft contact so far from 12.4% last year down to 10.9% this year, and hard contact has increased from 30.9% last year to 34.4% this year. So some of this could be that there's just been less sure outs on weak contact and more hard hit balls that defenders are going to have to make a really good play on to turn it into an out. Now, the other thing that I wanted to look at here is how the pitch clock has helped hitters. And I think the biggest spot that we're going to see this make a difference is when there's runners on base. Because normally what we'd see is that when you get runners on, the game was going to really slow down so that pitchers could hold runners on if they were a threat to run, and so that they could catch their breath a little bit more, so they weren't going to rush themselves into making a really costly mistake to the guy at the plate. But the whole point of the pitch clock is to keep the game from slowing down like this. Without pitchers being able to slow the game down as much, hitters have done better so far in these clutch situations in terms of their batting average, on base, slugging, and OPS, all going up from last year. They've also been hitting more home runs this year with guys on, and this is where you can say that all of this could just be a little bit of like the randomness of baseball, but they're also making better contact in these situations with less soft contact and more hard contact than last year. So objectively, they're just hitting the ball better in these situations. Now, hitters are striking out a little bit more often, but again, they're also getting a few more walks as well. So once again, you probably just have to chalk this up to the little differences that you're gonna see in pitching year to year. And finally, the league WRC plus with runners on has also dropped from 108 last year to 105 this year. So with runners on base, hitters are doing better this year with their slash line compared to last year, but compared to what they're doing without runners on base, they haven't been quite upping their game as much as they did last season. Looking at all this, I'd have to say that it looks like MLB got what they wanted with all these new rules. The games are taking less time and they're filled with more offense and more action, which, when you put it like that, it definitely makes it more interesting to watch. But I'm curious what you think about all this, so comment your thoughts down below about the rule changes, what you think about them so far, and how you see them playing out the rest of the season. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and then you get to see more baseball content like this when we release new videos on Wednesdays and Sundays. If you like this video, make sure to check out the video that's on your screen next to find out about Luis Roberts' just all or nothing way that he plays. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an awesome day. Later.